A wedding for peace, a bride with secrets. What she revealed on the wedding night shook. The chosen groom captain, Jace Morrow, stood at attention in the sterile briefing room aboard the UES Resilience, his dress uniform crisp despite the weight of what felt like the entire human race pressing down on his shoulders. Fleet Admiral Konstantin Volkov paced before him, while Ambassador Helena Cross sat rigidly at the conference table, her fingers drumming an anxious rhythm against the polished surface. "You understand what this means, Captain," Volkov said, his Russian accent thick with the gravity of the moment. 300 years of war, billions dead on both sides, and now, for the first time since first contact, the Varelians are offering genuine peace. Jace kept his expression neutral, though his mind raced. The Varelian Empire had been humanity's greatest nightmare since 2387, when their sleek, biomechanical ships had emerged from the outer rim like harbingers of extinction. Humanity had survived through sheer stubbornness, innovative tactics, and what the enemy called chaotic unpredictability. Now suddenly they wanted peace through marriage. "The symbolic value cannot be overstated," Ambassador Cross interjected, her voice carefully modulated. "Princess Soraya Velnathi is the daughter of High Ambassador Keth Morin, third in line to the Varelian Hierarchical Council. This union will demonstrate to both species that coexistence is possible." "With respect, ma'am," Jace said. "Why me? I'm a ship captain, not a diplomat. My record shows I've killed more Varelians than most." Volkov stopped pacing, his steel-gray eyes meeting Jace's. "That's exactly why, son. The Varelians specifically requested you. They said you demonstrated exceptional adaptive resonance during the Battle of Kepler 442, whatever that means." Jace remembered that battle vividly. He'd somehow anticipated every Varelian tactical shift, countering their movements with an intuitive precision that had saved his entire battle group. His tactical officer had called it luck. His enemies had called it impossible. Now, apparently, the Varelians called it resonance. "The ceremony will be held on neutral station Harmony. Point," Cross continued. "Full diplomatic immunity broadcast across both territories. You'll have a week to prepare. And if I refuse?" Volkov's expression hardened. "Then we continue a war we're slowly losing, Captain. The Varelians have made it clear. This marriage or resumed hostilities. No third option." 3 days later, Jace found himself aboard a diplomatic transport approaching Harmony Point. The station was a marvel of cooperative engineering, half human angular efficiency, half Varelian organic curves. It looked like a mechanical flower blooming in the void. His first glimpse of Princess Soraya came during the formal introduction ceremony. She was tall, even for a Varelian, with the characteristic pale blue skin and elongated features of her species. But her eyes, silver with flecks of deep purple, held an intelligence that seemed to pierce straight through him. When their hands touched during the ritual greeting, he felt an odd tingling sensation, like static electricity with purpose. "Captain Morrow," she said, her English flawless despite the subtle harmonic undertones of her native language. "I have studied your tactical records extensively. Your creativity in combat is most intriguing, Your Highness," he replied formally, though something in her tone made him uneasy. "I hope to bring that same creativity to building peace." She smiled, revealing teeth that were just slightly too sharp. "Oh, Captain, I believe you will exceed all expectations." The wedding preparations consumed the following days. Diplomatic protocols, cultural exchange sessions, and endless briefings on Varelian customs. But throughout it all, Jace couldn't shake the feeling that Soraya was studying him like a specimen under a microscope. Her questions were always thoughtful, always probing, always focused on humanity's military capabilities and strategic thinking. On the eve of their wedding, as he stood looking out at the stars through his quarter's viewport, Jace wondered if he was about to save humanity or deliver it into perfectly manicured alien hands. Tomorrow would change everything, one way or another. Vows and revelations. The wedding ceremony was a masterpiece of diplomatic theater. Representatives from dozens of human colonies filled one side of Harmony Point's grand ceremonial hall. while Varelian dignitaries occupied the other, their bioluminescent ceremonial robes casting ethereal patterns across the walls. The event was broadcast live across both territories, a moment of hope in a galaxy that had known too much war. Jace stood at the altar in his formal dress uniform, medals gleaming under the carefully balanced lighting that accommodated both human and Varelian visual spectrums. Ambassador Cross had coached him extensively on the hybrid ceremony that would honor both cultures, but his hands still felt slightly damp with nervous sweat. Princess Soraya approached through a corridor of honor guards, her ceremonial gown a flowing masterpiece of Varelian bio-silk that seemed to shift colors with each step. The traditional Varelian wedding crown, a delicate lattice of living metal that responded to the wearer's neural patterns, cast shifting shadows across her face. High Ambassador Kethmaran, her father, officiated with Ambassador Cross. The ceremony blended human traditions of spoken vows with Varelian harmonic resonance rituals. When they joined hands for the final binding ceremony, Jace felt that strange tingling sensation again, stronger this time, like electricity dancing through his nervous system. By the bonds of honor and the hopes of peace, they spoke in unison, the words carefully crafted by diplomatic committees, we unite not just ourselves but our peoples in common cause. The reception that followed was a careful dance of diplomacy. Jace found himself making small talk with Varelian military commanders he'd once tried to kill, while human dignitaries awkwardly attempted to navigate alien social customs. Through it all, Soraya remained at his side, playing the perfect diplomatic bride, charming human officials while maintaining proper Varelian decorum. But Jace noticed things others missed, the way certain Varelian delegates watched him with what seemed like scientific interest. How Soraya's responses to questions about future human-Varelian cooperation were always perfectly rehearsed. Most disturbing of all, the subtle way she steered conversations toward humanity's military capabilities, fleet deployments, and strategic thinking. As the evening wore on, he began to feel like a prize specimen at an alien zoo. Finally, protocol demanded they retire to their private quarters, a diplomatic suite designed to accommodate both species' needs. The moment the door sealed behind them, the careful diplomatic masks both had worn throughout the day began to slip. You can drop the act now, Jace said quietly, loosening his dress collar. Whatever game you're playing, I know this isn't about peace. Soraya moved to the suite's central seating area, her movements suddenly more predatory than graceful. You're more perceptive than our intelligence suggested, Captain. Though perhaps that shouldn't surprise us. Us? She gestured for him to sit across from her, her silver eyes taking on an almost hypnotic quality. Tell me, Jace, may I call you Jace? What do you know about your mother's death? The question hit him like a physical blow. She died in a transport accident when I was 12. What does that have to do with anything? Victoria Morrow, Lieutenant. Commander, attached to Deep Space Reconnaissance Division, officially died in a transport malfunction near the Tau Ceti system. Soraya's voice took on a clinical tone. Unofficially, she was part of a classified first contact team that encountered a Varelian scout ship 15 years before official first contact. Jace's blood ran cold. That's impossible. She survived the encounter. More than survived, she formed a connection with one of our scouts. A brief liaison that produced something unprecedented. Soraya leaned forward, her gaze intense. You weren't chosen by your leaders for this marriage, Jace. You were chosen by ours, because you carry something none of your people understand, but we do. The tingling sensation he'd felt during their handshake suddenly made terrible sense. What are you saying? I'm saying you're not fully human, my dear husband, and what flows in your veins may be the key to ending this war permanently, one way or another. The diplomatic suite suddenly felt like a cage, and Jace realized the real ceremony was just beginning. The awakening truth. Jace's world tilted off its axis as Soraya's words sank in. He stood abruptly, pacing to the viewport where stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, unchanged by the revelation that had just shattered his understanding of himself. You're lying, he said. Though even as the words left his mouth, pieces began falling into place. His inexplicable tactical intuitions, the way he'd always felt slightly out of step with his fellow humans, the dreams he'd had since childhood of vast, organic ships moving through space like living things. Your mother's final transmission before her transport malfunctioned was quite illuminating. Soraya continued, her voice softer now, almost gentle. She spoke of a child who would bridge two worlds, who carried the neural resonance patterns of both species. She died protecting that secret, and you. Soraya moved to a wall panel and activated a holographic display. The image that materialized showed a woman Jace recognized from old photographs, his mother but younger, wearing a deep space reconnaissance uniform. She was standing beside a tall figure whose face was obscured, but whose build and posture were unmistakably Varelian. Lieutenant Commander Hethvalar, Soraya said quietly. My mother's younger brother. He died 3 months after this image was taken, killed in a skirmish with human patrol ships, but not before he transmitted everything he'd learned about human neural architecture back to our intelligence division. Jace felt his legs give out, sinking into a nearby chair. This is why you married me, not for peace, but for whatever genetic anomaly I represent. Partially correct. Soraya moved closer, her expression shifting from clinical interest to something that might have been sympathy. But you're missing the larger picture, Jace. The neural resonance you carry isn't just a curiosity, it's a weapon, or rather the potential for one. She activated another holographic display, this one showing brain scan comparisons. Human neural patterns operate on quantum frequencies that allow for rapid adaptation and creative problem-solving. Varelian patterns operate on bioharmonic resonances that enable collective consciousness and perfect tactical coordination. You possess both. What does that mean? It means you can interface directly with Varelian bioship networks while maintaining human unpredictability. You could command an entire fleet with the efficiency of our collective consciousness, but with the tactical creativity that has made humans so dangerous. Soraya paused, studying his face. The question is, which side do you choose to serve? Jace's mind raced through the implications. This whole peace treaty is a sham, Soraya confirmed. Both sides are preparing for renewed warfare. The difference is, we want to test your capabilities first. Your leaders want to eliminate the Varelian threat permanently, and both sides believe this marriage gives them the advantage they need. And what do you want? For the first time since he'd met her, Soraya's composed mask slipped entirely. I want to prevent the genocide that's coming, Jace. Because that's what this is really about. Your Admiral Volkov has convinced the Colonial Council that humanity can win a final war if they can decode Varelian bioship technology. My father believes that a hybrid weapon could allow us to pacify humanity without wholesale slaughter. She moved to another wall panel, revealing a hidden compartment containing what looked like a combination of organic material and crystalline technology. This is a neural interface crown, designed specifically for your unique brain structure. Put it on, and you could control every Varelian ship in this system. Use it to help us demonstrate our superiority and humanity submits. Use it to help humanity understand our technology and we submit. Or we find a third option. We use your abilities to expose both governments' plans to their own people. Show them that peace is possible if they stop letting fear and hatred drive their decisions. Jace stared at the device, feeling the weight of two civilizations' futures pressing down on him. Why should I trust you? Soraya's laugh held no humor. Because, my dear husband, I'm about to give you proof that I'm willing to bet my life on your humanity. She reached behind her neck and did something that made a soft clicking sound. When she turned back to face him, her silver eyes had changed. The pupils were now distinctly human-shaped rather than the vertical slits typical of her species. Contact lenses, she explained. I'm as much a hybrid as you are, Jace. My mother was human, a prisoner of war who chose love over species loyalty. We're both living bridges between two worlds, and we're both about to discover which world will claim us. The choice of worlds, the neural interface crown, sat between them like a challenge from the universe itself. Jace studied the organic technology, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing in rhythm with what might have been a heartbeat. Every instinct screamed warnings, but beneath the fear, he felt something else. Recognition. As if some part of him had been waiting his entire life for this moment. "You said both sides are planning betrayal," he said finally. "What's the timeline?" Soraya's expression grew grim. 72 hours. Admiral Volkov believes he has enough intelligence gathered from this diplomatic exchange to launch what he calls Operation Final Dawn, a coordinated assault on our 3 nearest shipyard systems. Meanwhile, my father is preparing to activate sleeper bioships hidden throughout your colonies. Both strikes are designed to be decisive. Mutually assured. Destruction. Mutually assured genocide, she corrected. Neither side believes in half measures anymore. Jay stood and walked to the viewport again, watching the distant stars that had witnessed so much death already. How do I know this isn't just another layer of deception? How do I know you're not playing both sides to get what you want? Instead of answering directly, Soraya moved to her personal communication console and activated a secured channel. The holographic display showed Admiral Volkov in his private quarters aboard the Resilience, speaking to someone off-screen. Genetic. Material retrieved during the ceremony should be sufficient for the bioweapon project. Dr. Kepler believes we can synthesize a virus that will target Varelian neural pathways specifically. The marriage was just covered to get close enough for tissue sampling. Jace felt sick. Even as he'd been going through the motions of diplomatic marriage, his own people had been treating him as an unwitting spy. Soraya switched to another channel, this one showing High Ambassador Keth Moran in conversation with what appeared to be Varelian military commanders. The hybrid responds well to bioharmonic resonance. Initial tests suggest full neural compatibility with our ship networks. Once the interface crown is successfully integrated, we will have a weapon capable of turning human unpredictability against itself. Both sides, Jace said quietly, see me as a tool. Not both sides, Soraya said, deactivating the display. Both governments. But there are others, humans and Varelians, who are tired of war. Military officers who've seen too much death. Civilians who just want to live their lives. Scientists who believe cooperation could benefit both species. She activated another display, this one showing a list of names and positions. Captain Torres of the UES Defiant. She's refused 3 orders to fire on civilian Varelian transports. Commander Hethquan of the Varelian Third Fleet. He's been secretly providing advanced medical technology to human colonies suffering from bioweapon attacks. They're not alone. Jay studied the list, recognizing several names. A resistance movement. A peace movement. People from both sides who believe there has to be a better way. Soraya moved closer to him, her expression intense. But they need proof that cooperation is possible. They need a symbol that transcends species barriers. They need us. They need what we represent, and what we can become. Jace looked at the neural interface crown again. If I put that on, what happens to me? Do I stay human, or do I become something else entirely? I don't know, Soraya admitted. The technology has never been tested on someone with your unique neural structure. You might retain full consciousness and simply gain new abilities. You might lose yourself entirely in the collective. Or you might become something unprecedented, a true bridge between species. Not exactly a ringing endorsement. The only other options are genocide or submission, Jace. Sometimes the uncertain path is the only one worth taking. He thought of his mother, who had died protecting the secret of his heritage, of the countless soldiers on both sides who had fallen in, a war that had consumed centuries, of the children growing up in both civilizations who deserved better than endless conflict. If we do this, if we try to expose both governments and build this bridge, we'll be traitors to our own species. Or the first citizens of something new. Soraya extended her hand to him. I'm willing to find out if you are. Jace stared at her offered hand, then at the neural crown, then at the stars beyond the viewport where fleets were already positioning for humanity's final war. The choice felt impossibly large and terrifyingly personal at the same time. Together? He asked. Together, she confirmed. He reached for the crown, feeling its warm, organic surface respond to his touch. The bioluminescent patterns brightened, and somewhere in the distance he could swear he heard something like music, the harmonic resonance of an entire civilization waiting to see what he would become. The bridge between stars. The neural interface crown settled onto Jace's head with surprising gentleness, its organic components flowing like liquid metal to conform perfectly to his skull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality exploded into kaleidoscopic awareness. Suddenly, he wasn't just Jace Morrow standing in a diplomatic suite. He was simultaneously himself and something vastly larger, connected to the bio-neural networks of every Varelian ship within 50 light-years. He could feel their crew's thoughts like distant music, their tactical assessments flowing through his consciousness like tributaries joining a great river. But instead of drowning in the collective, his human awareness remained stubbornly individual, creating something unprecedented, a hybrid consciousness that could access Varelian networked thinking while maintaining human creativity and independence. "Jace," Soraya's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Can you hear me?" "I can hear everything," he whispered, his eyes still closed. Through the crown's interface, he sensed the approaching human fleet. Admiral Volkov's final dawn assault force, bristling with weapons designed to exploit intelligence gathered during the diplomatic mission. But he also felt the Varelian sleeper ships hidden throughout human space, their bioweapons primed for simultaneous activation. "Both attacks launch in 18 hours, he said, opening his eyes. The world looked different now. He could see the electromagnetic spectrums that Varelians perceived naturally, could sense the quantum fluctuations that governed human technology. "We don't have much time." Soraya moved to her communication console. "The resistance cells are standing by on both sides. Captain Torres has convinced 12 human ships to join us. Commander Hethquan has brought 8 Varelian vessels. But that's not enough to stop 2 full military campaigns." "Then we don't stop them," Jace said, understanding flooding through his hybrid consciousness. "We expose them." Using his newfound neural abilities, Jace began accessing communication networks across both civilizations. The crown allowed him to interface with Varelian biocommunication systems, while his human neural patterns let him crack human encryption protocols with intuitive leaps that no purely logical system could achieve. "What are you doing?" Soraya asked, watching data streams flow across her displays faster than any biological mind should be able to process. "Something that should be impossible," Jace replied, his awareness spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. "I'm broadcasting everything. Both governments' plans, the evidence of their deceptions, the proof that this peace treaty was just a prelude to genocide." Across human space, civilian populations watched in horror as classified military documents revealed Admiral Volkov's true intentions. On Varelian worlds, the collective consciousness recoiled as High Ambassador Keth Moran's plans for biological warfare became public knowledge. But Jace wasn't finished. Using his unique position as a bridge between both species' communication networks, he began facilitating direct contact between ordinary humans and Varelians for the first time in centuries. Scientists began sharing research. Artists exchanged cultural expressions. Children on both sides started talking to each other across the void. "The fleets are receiving new orders," Soraya reported, monitoring military channels. "Both sides are experiencing what appears to be spontaneous mutinies. Ship captains are refusing to participate in genocide." Through the neural crown, Jace felt the tide of war turning into something else entirely. Not peace imposed from above, but understanding growing from below. He sensed Captain Torres broadcasting human tactical doctrine to Varelian commanders who wanted to understand their former enemies. He felt Commander Hethquan sharing Varelian bioship technology with human engineers who were fascinated rather than fearful. "It's working," he breathed, though the effort was draining him. Maintaining consciousness across 2 incompatible neural architectures felt like trying to sing harmony with himself. Admiral Volkov appeared on the communication display, his face red with fury. "Captain Morrow, you will cease this treasonous activity immediately and report for court-martial." Before Jace could respond, High Ambassador Kethmoran materialized, alongside the human admiral, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with rage. "Princess Soraya, you have betrayed the fundamental interests of our species." "No," Soraya said calmly, moving to stand beside Jace. "We've betrayed the fundamental interests of your war. There's a difference." Jace felt strength flowing through. The neural crown, not just from Varelian bioships, but from the human vessels that had joined their cause. The hybrid crews, working together for the first time in centuries, were creating something neither species had achieved alone. Perfect. Unity without loss of individuality. "Admirals," Jace said, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated through both human and Varelian communication systems. "I'm broadcasting this conversation across both territories. Your people can see you now for what you really are. Leaders who would rather rule over ashes than share a living galaxy." Across the void, the fleets that had been preparing for final war began standing down. Not through orders from above, but through choices made by individual crews who had seen another possibility. "The war is over," Jace announced, feeling the neural crown's connection expanding to encompass peaceful contact between hundreds of worlds. Not because one side won, but because both sides chose to become something better. Admiral Volkov's transmission cut out abruptly. "High Ambassador." Kethmoran's display flickered as his own people began demanding answers he couldn't provide. As the crisis passed, Jace carefully removed the neural crown, feeling his consciousness slowly contract back to merely human proportions, though something had changed permanently. He could still sense the broader connections, still feel the harmony between species that had been forged in this moment. "What happens now?" Soraya asked, taking his hand. Jace looked out at the stars, where human and Varelian ships were beginning to work together for the first time in centuries. Now we build the bridge we were meant to be, not just between us, but between all the worlds that want to try." Their marriage had been intended as political theater, but they had transformed it into something real, a living symbol that two species could choose understanding over fear, cooperation over conquest. The age of war was ending. The age of unity was about to begin. And somewhere in the space between human ambition and Varelian harmony, a new kind of civilization was taking its first breath among the stars.